Pittsburgh Steelers fans, what's going on? This is Jeff Hartman, editor of BehindTheSteelCurtain.com, here with you for another episode of the Steelers preview. There's no dynamic duo joining me this week. There's no triumphant trio. I just thought of that. It's just a dynamic duo, I guess. I guess there is still a dynamic duo. It's me, Jeff Hartman, and Bryan Anthony Davis, the OG, the original. Bryan, how are you this afternoon and evening?
Does that make me the original gangster, original guy, old guy, or original godfather, or original geek?
It could be whatever you want. I think you would actually fit into most of those categories that you just described. So whatever you want to run with today, my friend, it's up to you.
Because I know Ramon Foster uses OG a lot too, and so I love it. Plus, there's that show now with
Yes.
Tracy Morgan, the great Tracy Morgan, called The OG.
Absolutely.
So I think that's supposed to be original gangster, but
yes,
that's good stuff though.
So whatever you want to call yourself tonight is fine with me. And again, Steeler fans, it's a blessing and a curse. Steeler fans are sick of Antonio Brown. They're sick of Le'Veon Bell. They're sick of the drama. But as someone that runs a website and someone that wants to do podcasts throughout the off season, I love it. I gotta say, I love it. It's the soap opera that is the Pittsburgh Steelers. Like sand through the hourglass, so are the days of Steelers' lives. That's what it feels like every single day when I log onto my computer and get on Twitter. And Bryan, we have a lot to talk about. Kevin Colbert spoke again at the NFL Scouting Combine this week. It was on Wednesday. What did you think of what he said? What did you think of anything that has happened regarding the Steelers this past week?
Well, I got to tell you, when Kevin Colbert starts speaking now, I got to get nervous too. Just when Antonio Brown keeps on speaking, really at this point, until a trade is done, I think everybody needs to stop talking. Just zip it, duct tape over the mouth. I don't care, because at this point, everybody's hurting trade chances every time they talk. Because for me, when last week, and this wasn't just the second time he talked, the first time he talked, when he did the infamous 52 kids reference, that kind of hurt things. Now, Antonio Brown, to me, has a scapegoat. He's able to go ahead and, like he did, he went on national television or a national website last night and had an interview and said, well, that's what I was telling you all along. That's the problem. And my worry is that when you have somebody as short-sighted as Antonio Brown, that is just looking straight ahead and okay, this is what I know, and he's just going to jump onto this, will potential free agents, will other people jump on and think that there's a problem going on in Pittsburgh? Because every time you turn around, there is a Maurice Jones-Drew, there is a Deion Sanders, there's a James Harrison, just somebody jumping into Antonio Brown's corner. So is this going to be a tough destination to go to? And does Kevin Colbert really need to curb it with that kind of stuff?
Yeah, Lance Williams on his show, I said it 2 weeks ago, did one that was labeled as Silence is Golden. And it's basically talked about what you just mentioned with sometimes you just need to shut up. I mean, and the Steelers need to do that. Now, Kevin Colbert can't help that he has a media availability and that they're peppering him with questions. He can't pull a Drew Rosenhaus and just say, yeah, next question. He has to say something. Now, should he always say what he says? Probably not, but he's doing his part within the trade dance, the song and dance. He's trying to make it sound that we're not going to take a lesser offer just because Antonio Brown's acting like a fool right now. And we're going to get what we want for him. And if we don't, we're going to keep him. And he has to say that because you don't want to get a lowball offer. I guarantee you teams have called the Steelers. I guarantee you they've said, hey, what are you thinking? And he's probably saying, look, we're looking for a one and more. And they're thinking, hey, there's no way. This guy's a pain in the butt. And Antonio Brown can be a pain in the butt, but he's also a heck of a football player. This is all maneuvering, in my opinion. And plus, anyone that's putting stock into the Well, John Lynch today from the 49ers, he had his media session at the Combine, and he said that they have not been in contact with the Steelers. He can't say that they've been in contact with the Steelers, or else it's tampering. And then the NFL can get involved, and the NFL can negate any potential trade, and they can fine teams, and he can't say anything. So don't put too much stock into that. Antonio Brown has his teams that are interested, and I think the deal's going to get done. It's going to be interesting, though, that he's going public finally. This Saturday, he mentioned that had an interview. He's going to do an open interview with ESPN. It's already been recorded. It's going to air on Saturday. I'm not sure the time. If someone's in the live chat on YouTube and you know what time that's going to run, please let us know so I can tell the audience. I just don't know what it is, but it is on Saturday. And they shared a little snippet of it today, and it was very interesting. He had some very candid remarks about Kevin Colbert and the culture of the Steelers. It'll be interesting to hear what his side is and whether it's going to help, hurt, or be indifferent. He's also going on LeBron James's HBO show. I wish I knew the name of it. That's where they're all sitting in like the barber shop and they're just talking. And he was very open about a lot of things there about how, once he wants to become himself, people turn on him and all this stuff. So this is far from over. It's far from over. But Bryan, the thing that I liked this week that wasn't related to Antonio Brown was they talked about Ryan Shazier. They said that Kevin Colbert said they do intend to keep him on the roster, even though he's not going to play in 2019. The way he talked is that if he keeps progressing the way he is, 2020, they'll see where he is, but they want to get him under contract. That's what I was hoping for. It kind of restores humanity in me, because this is something that I would expect the Steelers to do. I would expect the Steelers to say, look, you're our guy. We're not going to let anything happen to you. We're going to make sure you're taken care of. And that's what it sounds like they're going to do. And also, we talked about the tight ends a few weeks ago. Jesse James is going to get to explore free agency, and there's supposedly some teams interested. The Buffalo Bills, Jacksonville Jaguars. So, Bryan, what are your thoughts on any of that stuff?
Well, first and foremost, Ryan Shazier, that warms my heart as well. And here's the thing. I was just talking about short-sightedness and maybe free agents worried about coming to Pittsburgh because of the way they take care of the players. But your comment on that just reminded me that, that's how you take care of players. And any player outside could look at that instead of the Antonio Brown situation and see that they're going to take care of genuine players that want to be there and that aren't out for themselves. And Ryan Shazier was never a player that has been out for himself. As far as Jesse James goes, they will let him explore free agency. If he can get a better deal, then God bless him. I hope he does. I hope he cashes in, because this might be his only opportunity to cash in. If that happens, I would shake his hand if I was management and say, hey, if you ever need anything, let us know. I mean, that's a great offer, because they already have a number one guy. Jesse and Vance McDonald together were 1 and 1A. They made a heck of a tight end with their combined stats. But if you go ahead and take a look at Jesse James' opportunities, he's a number one elsewhere all alone. He could be a complete starter and he can get a great opportunity. So, I mean, I definitely think that's great. And I'm glad he mentioned that too. So it's kind of a little bit of a state of the union what we're looking at and going to be looking at in the next couple of weeks when free agency opens on the 13th. It's going to be really interesting. And like you said at the beginning of the show, guys like Antonio Brown, these Kevin Colbert comments, we always have something to talk about on what's on the eve of March 1st. It's a great thing.
Yeah. Sadly, sometimes the things we have to talk about are not that great. And kudos to Thomas White, who's in our live chat right now, who mentioned that, another good thing that happened is that Juju Smith-Schuster started his own foundation, which is going to benefit kids. I haven't done a lot about, I haven't read the actual press release about who it's benefiting, where it's benefiting, how they're going to raise money or anything like that. But he did start his own foundation. It is going to benefit children. And kudos that's good. Sometimes I like to talk about good news and not always just the Antonio Brown, Kevin Colbert, Ben Roethlisberger, Le'Veon Bell, Mike Tomlin nonsense. So kudos to that there. Now let's get right into our next segment. This is normally Dave's segment. Dave is not here. He is laying in a hammock, literally, somewhere down, I think, in Florida. And here we are. And Bryan, you're going to take over the Stat Geek duties for this week. Why don't you go ahead in you and your Darmani Dawson jersey?
And God bless him. Dave tried whatever he really tried to get on the show tonight. The connection just wasn't great, but he was all ready to do it. So I hope I could go. Excuse me. I hope I can go ahead and do him justice, because those are very big shoes to fill, both literally and figuratively, I guess. So let's talk about linebackers. Since we're talking about linebackers this week, this player has 53 career takeaways, and they remain the highest figure ever by a non-defensive back for the Steelers. Who is that?
Okay, so you said this. Say the first part again.
Okay, this player has 53 career takeaways. So this is just the combination of fumble recoveries and interceptions. And it remains the highest figure ever by a non-defensive back in Steeler history.
And you said it's a line. You talking about just outside linebackers? Is any linebacker?
Let's go any linebacker.
Okay.
But you know what? This is an outside linebacker.
I'm going to say Jack Ham.
It is Jack Ham.
Yeah.
Now, the player that has the highest amount of career takeaways in NFL history by a non-defensive back, who is that?
Oh, so this isn't just Steelers. This is in NFL history?
Yes, in NFL history.
Lawrence Taylor. I don't know. That's wrong.
Ray Lewis is number 2.
Ugh.
Ray Lewis is number 2.
I just threw up in my mouth.
Number 1. Well, I'm going to clean up that taste for you with a nice minty, also Jack Ham.
Yeah, nice. Very good.
Dobroshenko.
There you go. Good. All right.
So
that's good
Jack
one.
Ham. That's I was really pleased to see that. And I also found an article when I was looking at this. Jack Ham did not know this. He found this out by watching a Sunday Night Football broadcast with Al Michaels. So had no clue that was even a possibility. Now, we all know that James Harrison, as an outside linebacker, is the all-time sack leader in Pittsburgh with 80.5 sacks. Who did he replace?
Oh, I know this.
For that mantle.
So who did he pass? Who did he surpass?
Yes.
That would be a man who also wore number 92, and that was Jason Gilden.
Okay, and that was my next question. Actually, it was supposed to be my question before this. What number has the most sacks in Steeler history? And it was going to be 92.
92.
See, I'm not as good as this. I'm not as good as this as Dave, but I'm trying. So, in the top 10, there's 7 linebackers in the top 10 in the lead in sacks. We talked about the number 1 linebacker in the top 10 with takeaways being Jack Ham. Number 2 is another linebacker, and it's not that hard if you think about it. But there's a third in there. So number 2, I'm just going to not even have you guess. Number 2 is, of course, Jack Lambert. But there's a third linebacker in the top 10 with fumble recoveries in Steeler history. What is his name?
So you're saying fumble recoveries is the stat we're talking about, and you're asking me just with the Steelers, not NFL history.
Just for the Steelers.
And it's the third person on the list?
He is the only linebacker
well, you said Lambert.
In the top 10 in Steeler history with fumble recoveries other than Lambert and Ham.
Oh
So
my
there's one
gosh.
more linebacker.
You're killing me here with these. You're really confused. Okay, linebacker, fumble recoveries. Can you tell me what the number is? Not the jersey number, but how many fumble recoveries they had?
No.
You don't have
It's
that.
not going to help.
Well, yeah, it might. I just tell me what the number.
All right,
you don't even have it. You know what?
Right here.
I never thought I'd miss Dave
I had it,
but here I did.
Oh, you know what? Listen here, bro. I wasn't expecting you to ask that question. And I tell you what, if you get this right, I'll take your entire family out to dinner all weekend long.
I want that number. Though. And we have that whole family. That's a big bill. That's 5 kids plus 2 adults. 7.
Yeah, I know. That's why I'm.
Is it single digits? Do you remember?
No, it's not single digits. I think it's around 15 or so.
I'll go with James Ferrier.
Okay. You are incorrect.
Okay.
And I was just about to get the number and then it popped off. Your second guess was probably this. You don't get the dinner, but you're right, Jeff. It was John Rieger.
Who the hell is that? Oh, goodness.
I think he played in 1953.
Well, he had to play for a while if he had all those fumble recoveries. Okay.
Yeah, okay. But I think he started his career in 1953. That's something you could go ahead and look up if you want, because that's that's good stuff. John Rieger. Did you ever hear of John Rieger?
No, this is the first time I've ever heard his name. I could trip over him, wouldn't know who he was.
There you go. Well, there you go. That's something to look up. Now, there are 10 linebackers, 10 of the top 10 linebackers in sacks in Steeler history. Only one of them was a number 1 pick. Who was that?
Top 10 linebackers in sacks. Number 1 overall, number 1 pick, first round pick. Only one in the top 10. I'm just trying to run through all these in my head.
Only one in the top 10 was a number 1 pick. Top 10 of linebackers in sacks.
See, I don't think TJ Watt has enough to be in the top 10. Because I'm thinking like Porter wasn't, Lamar Woodley wasn't, we know Harrison wasn't, Gilden wasn't. I don't think Gilden was. Clark Hagens wasn't.
Gilden was not a number 1 pick.
Okay. Kevin Green wasn't even drafted by the Steelers. I don't think Greg Lloyd was.
He was not a number 1 pick either.
Who? Lloyd?
Kevin Green was a number 2 pick of the Rams in 85.
Okay.
But you just mentioned Greg Lloyd was a number 6 pick.
Yeah, he was a 6
in 87 for the Steelers. And
so then you go back into the 70s. Was Ham a first round pick?
What's that?
Jack Ham is my guess. Was he a first round draft pick out of Penn State?
No, he was a number 2 pick as well.
Well, I don't know.
In the same draft, if I'm not mistaken, he was a number 2 pick in 69, along with Joe Green at number 1. It's actually the Law Dog, Lawrence Timmons.
Dang it.
35.5
pick of Mike Tomlin's tenure with the Steelers, his very first draft pick in 2007 out of Florida State. You're right.
And it's an interesting thing about TJ Watt. He is 20 right now. If you're looking at the top 10 linebackers in sacks, number 10 is Chad Brown with 31. Mm-hmm. And at this point, he is a quarter of the way to James Harrison's number at 80.
And he's young. He's
really
young.
He's got 20 after 2 seasons. So I thought that was very interesting. Just 2 more here. The 11th ranked linebacker on the list is the highest ranked linebacker to have ended his career with the Steelers on the sack list. So of the top 10, nobody in the top 10 ended their career with the Steelers.
Okay. But the 11th did.
But number 11 did. The 11th did.
Jason Gilden did not end his career in Pittsburgh.
Yeah, he was number 2, and he ended with his career with Jacksonville.
That's what I thought. Did Greg Lloyd play anywhere else? I don't think so. Did he?
Carolina.
Dang it.
He went to Carolina.
That was my guess. So who is it? Go ahead.
It's actually a guy you mentioned before. He did not start his career in Pittsburgh, but he ended his career. James Potts Ferrier.
There, you're right. He started off in New York for the Jets. He was drafted by the Jets out of Virginia. Okay. And what's your last question here?
Now these are linebackers in the top 10. The 2 other players in the top 10 in sacks that were not linebackers were Aaron Smith and Cam Hayward. They ended their career with Pittsburgh. And finally, linebackers with the most Pro Bowls in Pittsburgh Steeler history. I mean, they're pretty obvious. The number 1 would be Lambert with 9. Jack Ham would be number 2 with 8. And there's a third linebacker who we have not mentioned tonight. Has 7 Pro Bowls under his belt, and that's for third all time as far as linebackers go.
Seven Pro Bowls. You already said Lambert and Ham. 7 Pro Bowls. And this is cumulative, or is this all with Pittsburgh?
It's actually all with Pittsburgh.
Wow. See, I don't think Ferrier was there long enough, nor did he have that many Pro Bowl nods. Oh, gosh. James Harrison.
This guy did not wear a linebacker's typical number.
I don't know. Tell me what it is.
Andy Russell.
Oh, there you go. He had 7 Pro Bowl nods.
He had 7 Pro Bowls. Yep.
Wow.
But there's my best attempt to go ahead and
that was pretty good.
And fill in for the Stat Geek.
Let me just say that in the live chat right now, a lot of people for some reason are talking about Levon Kirkland, and we're not talking about inside linebackers today. We're going to talk about outside linebackers. But let me just say that guy was such a freak. He was probably 6. Well, he wasn't that tall, I don't think. I was 6'2". He was thick. But boy, that guy could run down running backs. He was number 99. Man, I remember watching those teams. He and Chad Brown. Those were the teams of my youth. I know we talked about this before. Like when I was a kid, like that was the first team that that Blitzburg defense, so good. I always loved watching Levon Kirkland play the game. Let's get into some outside linebacker talk now, Brian. We're talking about a position that is notorious for the Pittsburgh Steelers because everyone always thinks about those bookend rushers. They think about those guys coming off the edge, harassing the quarterback, strip sacks, James Harrison, Lamar Woodley, Joey Porter, Clark Hagans. I could keep going. You know who I'm talking about. And now you have a very strange situation. In last season, 2018, the Steelers only carried 3 outside linebackers on their roster, and that was the starters, TJ Watt, Bud Dupree, and then Anthony Chickillo. Anthony Chickillo will be a free agent. We're going to talk about that in a second. That's it. Now, they did activate Ola Adeniyi later in the season. He was on injured reserve. He, after injuring, I believe, a hamstring in the preseason, in the final preseason game. My goodness, I can never remember a team being this thin at outside linebacker. Here we have a situation where Bud Dupree is going to be back. I don't think they're going to pick up his fifth. They picked up his 5th-year option, but I don't think they're going to utilize it. He would make like $9.5 million. I don't think they're willing to pay him that. I think they want to maybe work out another deal that can save some cap space with Bud Dupree. But I think they want him back. TJ Watt's still on his rookie deal. He's not going anywhere. But Anthony Shaquille is a free agent. Bryan, just as a state of affairs, what do you think about the Steelers' outside linebackers right now?
One injury away from complete decimation. What happens if something happens to a TJ Watt? And then you're going with right now, and Chickalo's a free agent, and then you're going with a guy like Bud Dupree, and then a very untested Ola Denny on the other side, and you're looking for somebody off of the streets. It's a very dangerous situation right now, and I've never really seen they've been so strong outside linebackers over the year. Listen to the cast of characters that you just mentioned, and there's a few that you didn't. And right now, we're talking about Dupree and Watt, and I really think Watt has a great future. Dupree, he's got a lot to prove, but what if Dupree's your number one? What are you going to do? Like call Jarvis Jones, ask him to come back?
No, Bryan,
it's a sorry state of affairs.
I hate to interrupt you here, but I don't know what we would do without Dave. I really don't, because Dave just notified me via the live chat, because he's watching the show, that we did the outside linebacker group 2 weeks ago. And so I just did a quick search, and well, I'll be darned, we did it 2 weeks ago. So
what? I thought we did. I thought we did, and then when I looked up to gray scales,
I got
a little nervous.
When I texted you earlier and I said, let's do outside linebackers, you said that's what I was prepared for. And I'm thinking, that's sweet. We're ready to go. And now all of a sudden, here we are on the fly. Let's do inside linebacker. I can do it. You're ready. Let's do it.
That's how versatile we are.
That's right.
We're versatile enough to do inside linebacker.
We're going to do inside linebacker.
Let's show it off.
Yeah, screw you, Dave Schofield. We're doing inside linebacker. All right, how about that?
Can you cut that part in post? Can you go and clip it, and then we'll look really good?
No, we don't look good right now. We look awful, but we're still going to talk about inside linebackers. This is another position that is another one I think is really thin. You have LJ Ford is set to be a free agent. They signed John Bostic last year, who I feel is a pretty good base 3-4 line inside linebacker, but they don't run their base defense that often. Less than 25% of the time they run their base defense. It's a sub-package team. Vince Williams, I'm not sure if you would say if his 2018 was better than his 2017. 2017, he should have had double-digit sack totals, and he was injured. He missed his first game ever in his career last season. And then you have guys like Tyler Matakevich behind them. This is a position of need. Now, I did my Steelers Burning Question episode last night, and I spoke about this specifically. And I said that I felt this was the greatest team need for the Steelers this offseason, period. And I said, because I think that if you look at the gaping hole left by Ryan Shazier, and you look at, oh my goodness, what in the world? They just have never been able to fill that spot, that role, that void, that gigantic crater of when he got hurt. And so I think this is where they need to go out and get a free agent. And a lot of people say like CJ Mosley. Well, will he get to free agency? I don't know. I don't think he will. But if he does, if I'm the Steelers, I'm going to make a play. And everyone says, well, they don't go after big names like that. They did with Donta Hightower a few years ago. They didn't win that sweepstakes. He went back to New England. But at the same time, they were close. They had Donta Hightower in their facility. They were offering him a contract. He just chose to go back to New England. If I'm the Steelers and a player like CJ Mosley's out there, I'm trying to get him, because I feel this is a position, Bryan, you can answer this question here. I feel like this is a position you're better off getting a free agent that has experience and going with a rookie. Not that these rookies are, not that they're not good, and not that they don't have a player that can come in and play right away, but can they get a guy that can run the defense, do all the calls, be that key cog in the middle at 20? I'm not so sure. Bryan, what are your thoughts?
Well, I have a few thoughts. First and foremost, I guess you just don't have any confidence in Keith Kelsey or David Spillane because they're also inside linebackers on the roster, on the
Who?
90-man roster. So, I mean,
Wait, wait,
that's
wait, 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 wait.
Keith
Who?
Kelsey and David Spillane. Do I have
Yeah.
to say it again? Okay, it's no Frank Webb, but it's Keith Kelsey and it's David Spillane, and they have feelings too, Jeffrey Hartman. I'm just telling you that right now. Here's the deal. I agree with you that go out and look at free agents. The Ravens have a very interesting situation at linebacker. All four of their starting linebackers are free agents in some way. Mosley is an unrestricted free agent. The guy, I can never pronounce his name. Patrick Unawasor or whatever his name is. You know who I'm talking about. He looked really good at the end of the season in the playoffs. The guy was a stud at the end of the season. Unawasor, Unawasor. He's out there as well, but he's a restricted free agent. The guys on the ends are free agents, so they've got a lot of guys to sign. I would think that Mosley could be a guy that goes. Actually, you're going to have to let somebody go, linebackers. They're actually looking at bringing back T. Sizzle, Terrell Suggs. So it's going to be very interesting to see what happens there. You have Zadarius Smith, who's also a good outside linebacker, but he's a younger guy. They might want to keep him too. So a guy like Mosley could be the odd man out in the Charm City. So, I mean, that could quite be a possibility. There's another restricted free agent that if you watch the playoffs, watch the Super Bowl, his name was Corey Littleton. Guy was all over the place. That's a guy that some team could possibly make a play for. That'd be interesting as well. But when you're talking about the guys available in the draft, and you said, could we get somebody at 20? I think it's possible. We always talk about in Pittsburgh stairway to 7. So for me, when I'm talking about the first round draft pick, I'm going stairway to Devin. There's 2 guys named Devin that I think would be fantastic for this team. It's Devin White from LSU, who they're talking about being a next Ray Lewis type of player. He's actually the highest ranked linebacker now. He's coming out as a junior. Then there's Devin Bush, and Devin Bush is from the University of Michigan. He kind of reminds a lot of people of Ryan Shazier. He's that fast. He can drop into coverage. He's good size, a good hitter. I mean, I'd love to see a guy like that come in. And you're also forgetting that we talked about this at the beginning of the podcast. Antonio Brown could still garner a number 1. And if that bidding war starts up and you hear that, okay, 2's not good enough, teams like Gruden, teams like the Panthers, Gruden in Oakland, teams like the Panthers, they're going to pony up if they want something. The Panthers are at 16 right now. That could be a possibility. A team like the Browns, I know they said they'd never do it in the division, but if that's your best bet at number 17, you can get one of these guys. Maybe not Devin White, but you can get Devin Bush right in that area, and you could possibly. A lot of people haven't projected to the Steelers at 20 as well. So it's going to be really interesting to see. They could go a lot of places. I'd love to see them actually do both. If they could get some depth there, because the depth is not good. They did really well with LJ Fort, but if he's gone, you're sitting there with Bostic and you're sitting there with Williams, and you don't want Dirty Red anywhere near the middle of the field unless he's on special teams.
Yeah, I don't the draft picks you spoke of, I don't know a ton about them. So I can't really speak about them individually, but I do agree that they could get free agent and draft pick at the position. And that free agent very well just could be LJ Ford. The Steelers have said that they want to bring him back. I think they'd be smart to bring him back. He's what I call a very good insurance policy. He's not a player that is going to have people saying, Ryan Shazier who? But he sure is a heck of a lot better than John Bostic. And I think he fits into their scheme better as well. So I agree with you about Matakevich. A lot of people love Dirty Red, and I just don't see him as being anything more than a glorified special teams player. He just is not fast enough. I know that he won the Butkus Award in college. I know he racked up a ton of tackles at Temple, but folks, he played at Temple. Okay. And it's not the same as the National Football League. Can he come in if he needed to play a game or two and probably get by? Yes, but is he your every down guy? No. No, he is not. So I had inside linebacker, and Jordan Hicks is another name from the Eagles. A lot of people don't think he's going to see free agency. They think they're going to sign him. The Eagles are. But for me, I just think that my question for you, Brian, is this the biggest need for the Steelers this off season? Inside linebacker? Do you put it on another position? I said in my podcast last night, not to spoil it for anybody, you can still listen. I said inside linebacker was top of the top notch, number one need. What do you think?
I've been going back and forth on this, and I'm really thinking that it is now inside linebacker, and that's the best possibility. I still think corner is a top need. My hope, my huge wish right now is that they can go both in the first round. They could go corner and they can go inside linebacker with 2 first-round picks if that happens. I'm still thinking that that's a possibility. And the cornerback, we'll talk more about the corners next week, but there's 3 guys that look really nice as far as corners out there, and one of them could fall to Pittsburgh at 20. So I'm still thinking number 16, you go inside linebacker. If you're at number 16, if you're at number 15, if you're in the middle there with a pick, because I really think the Carolina talks. I think Carolina's a huge possibility for Antonio Brown right now. So I mean, they could be looking at 2 picks inside the top 20. But you go inside linebacker first at this point.
Yeah, and that's the tough thing about all this talk, and it was tough last night when I did my show. When you're talking about team needs, let's say for some reason they don't get what they feel is adequate compensation for Antonio Brown, and so they don't trade him. That changes the dynamic of everything. It changes your approach in free agency. It changes your approach to the NFL draft because all of a sudden, wide receiver is not really high on your list because as long as Antonio Brown is physically going to play, you're fine at wide receiver. Yeah, you might take one in like the late day 2, day 3, but ultimately you don't have that need. If Antonio Brown does get traded, that changes dramatically because now wide receiver skyrockets up the list. It was 3rd on my list after cornerback and inside linebacker. I think wide receiver, think about it. The receivers you have guaranteed back next year are Juju Smith-Schuster, James Washington, and Ryan Switzer. That's it. Yeah, you might have Griffey or Ken Griffey's son, but I'm talking about real players. And that's scary. That's a scary proposition for a team that's trying to put up a lot of points. So we'll talk about team needs, as we get closer to the draft, as the scouting combine continues to kick off as it starts tomorrow. I think tomorrow is the first day of actual testing. So, Brian, anything else to say about inside linebackers before we move on?
Well, just to wrap up that conversation we just had with a tiny little blow, to find out where inside linebacker is your priority, who do you think is the more valuable player on defense right now? Is it Joe Hayden or is it Vince Williams? And if that's the case, and if you're saying that Joe Hayden is more valuable as a defensive back, then you can get by with Joe Hayden leading it. I don't think you can get by with Vince Williams being your best inside linebacker. Didn't get by last year with that.
No, that's a tough question because I think both of those positions are the cover's pretty bare at both positions. You have your starters, and then after that is a pretty precipitous drop afterwards. So, yeah, you have Mike Hilton, but Mike Hilton's not playing outside. He's playing the slot. He's one of the best slot cornerbacks in the league, but he's not going to play outside. So you have Joe Hayden outside. Cody Sensabaugh is a free agent. I don't want to get into too much cornerback talk because we'll talk about that when we get to that position. It might be next week. Next week we might talk about inside linebackers again because that's just how we do things, Brian and I. So But you have Cody Sensabaugh was your number 2 cornerback last year. Number 2. Just think about that. Cody Sensabaugh, Bryan. Cody Sensabaugh was your second best cornerback. Cam Sutton didn't play better than he did, or else he would have been playing. So I think the cupboard is really bare at both positions, and that's why, as most people in the live chat are saying, that when you talk about inside linebacker and cornerback, it's like 1 and 1A or 1A, 1B, however you want to put it. And it's probably whatever the best available prospect is at that moment available, that's who you go with. So Cody Sensabaugh, Bryan. Cody freaking Sensabaugh.
You know what? I mean, I just think that inside linebacker position has less depth than the corner position, but that's just me. And I agree with you on the Cody Sensabaugh thing. So we'll talk more about that next week. I will ask you one last thing. Are the guys on the live chat and the guys and gals on the live chat, are they liking my Stairway to Devon's? Because I think Devin White and Devin Bush are 2 top prospects.
No one said anything, so they hate it. They think it's awful.
Okay. They hate me. That's cool. Let's go to something else.
They said tell Darmani to go.
Brian's going to eat worms.
Okay. Yeah. There's been a lot of news this week all across the landscape. You know, you look at I don't know, just weird stuff going on. I guess not that weird, but you know, Nick Foles is going to be a free agent. There's a lot of stuff going on, but that's not what people want to hear us talk about. They want to talk about either or. That's what they want to hear us talk about, Bryan, is either or segment. Is there anything else Steeler related you want to really get into, or are we just pushing on?
No, but I've got a question. Do I get 2?
Either ors? Yeah, we can both do 2 since Dave's not here.
Okay. And no, I mean, I've really nothing else Steeler-wise. We've covered a whole gamut of Steeler stuff.
Yeah.
And I'm pretty comfortable with that.
And now people are saying that they like your Stairway to Devon. I don't feel like the Stairway to Heaven thing is as good anymore now that the Patriots
Devin.
No, but I mean like the Stairway to Heaven or Devon is as good because the Patriots have won 6 and now they're in the same situation. So like, are the Patriots saying Stairway to Devon as well right now? I don't know. I don't know. I don't know. So anyways, people like it. You should be happy. Brian's going to sleep better at night now, knowing that a couple people said that they like his new slogan. I'll tell you what, Bryan, if they end up drafting one of the Devons, I will make sure that we do a BTSC shirt that says Stairway to Devon, and I will buy you one personally. Okay, is that good?
I love it. Thank you, Jeff.
All right. I'm going to go with a very simple either or to start us off here. And in my opinion, this is so simple. It tells me a lot about a person. A lot about a person. And it's all about ice cream. And it's so simple. Some might say it's black and white. It's simple. It's chocolate or vanilla, Bryan. You only have those options. We're not a Dairy Queen. We're not getting Blizzards. You have chocolate. You have vanilla. What are you taking?
Chocolate. Always chocolate.
I knew you were going to say that. We're a lot alike. Chocolate. People that say vanilla, I feel, are extremely bland.
It's like that with cake, too.
See, I'm not a big cake guy. I'll take ice cream over cake any day of the week.
I'm not either, but if I have a choice of chocolate or devil's food or white or whatever you want to call it, I'm going chocolate. It's just always chocolate. Now, my wife, who I can't wait to wake her up and tell her that she's bland, she's vanilla all the way. Yeah. So I'm going to say, Jeff said that you were bland, and she knows where you live, Hartman.
I know
I'd be very afraid.
She does. Yeah. Okay. Real quick sidebar. So you said chocolate over vanilla, but you said you take ice cream over cake, right?
Yes.
Is there anything that would trump ice cream for you?
You know, I don't think. I think it's
cream is a good cookie. The only thing that would come close. I like cookies.
Gooey cookies. A hot gooey chocolate chip cookie.
Yeah, you gotta be classic. You don't need to mess around.
If it's a hot If it's a hot chocolate chip cookie, oh, you just give me a huge thing of milk. I'm not much of a milk drinker, but when it
Yeah.
comes to like a brownie or a hot chocolate chip cookie, and I'm going chocolate chip cookie first, I'm gulping that milk down and I'm going crazy.
Okay, now here's what I want to ask you. I'm going to do my second one and let you go. Okay, now my youngest daughter, our youngest child, who's just turned 8 months old not too long ago, after she got out of the bathtub tonight, I got her dressed and I put a little. We have a onesie. It's a Beatles onesie. Okay, it says it's pink and it says the Beatles and it has the picture of them walking across Abbey Road. I like it. And my other kids that were older were asking about the Beatles, and I was playing them songs on Spotify about the Beatles because I love the Beatles and I choose the Beatles over most bands. And I got to think, I was like, I'm going to ask Bryan tonight, Paul or John. They were essentially the Beatles, and most people side with one or the other. I got to know. I know you're a music guy. Who is it, John Lennon or Paul McCartney?
I have an answer that I've had my entire life. This is a really tough one for me. And before I go ahead and say it, my kids who are 9 and 11, they all have Beatles stuff. My son is addicted to the Beatles. He knows everything about them. And my daughter's has a Sergeant Pepper jacket or a sweatshirt. I mean, the Beatles stuff's really cool. You do have cool kids, and so dress them in a Beatles onesie. That's really awesome. I am a Paul guy. I've always been, basically because I was exposed to him more. But I will never forget. I listened to Howard. I don't know why I was awake because I was like 8. But I listened to Howard Cosell during that Monday Night Football Dolphins Patriots game announce his death, and I remember just feeling numb. And but more and more, I mean, I love a lot of John Solo stuff, but for me, I'm a Paul guy.
Well, and that's the thing. I'm the same. I'm a Paul McCartney guy. My dad liked Paul McCartney, but because Paul McCartney had he was so successful as a solo artist with Wings, and even as a solo artist, he just had so many hits outside of the Beatles. But John Lennon's life was taken so early that you don't know what he would have done had he had the longevity of Paul McCartney. Here's what's interesting for me is as a young kid, I listened to the Beatles with my dad all the time. And he loved the Beatles, and he listened to them nonstop. And I listened to Wings over the Wingspan and Wings Over America, all those great albums. And I wasn't until I learned I taught myself how to play the guitar. And my brother and my sister-in-law got me. There's 2 really thick books that are like the Beatles catalog of almost every song has guitar tabs, all that stuff. And I was just leafing through, and I had no idea how many songs. Like I always thought that Paul was the overall mastermind of the Beatles, but no, there were 2 parts of the brain, and it was even John and Paul. I mean, every song except for a few George Harrison tracks are it's all John and Paul. Like, and then you think about the lyrics, and sometimes as a kid, I didn't realize that a lot of the songs I loved the most were actually John singing and not Paul. You just don't realize the difference as a young child. I have a ton of respect for John Lennon and what he did and what he stood for, and technically what he died for. But at the same time, I'm with you. I'm a Paul McCartney guy. So those are my either ors. Not to get too off on a tangent there, Bryan. The table is now, I'm sure the soapbox is now yours.
Real quick, that's a 1A, 1B situation because I love them both. But when you're talking about the Beatles and their edge, they got their edge from John Lennon, and I really love that about him too. You know what? Something you brought up actually leads into my next question. It's your playing of the guitar. And so you are around the campfire, and you have the guitar, and you have one last song to go ahead and have everybody just sing along to and just feel completely at ease before you wrap things up. And there's 2 songs I'm going to give you, just a choice of these 2. Is it the Eagles, Peaceful, Easy Feeling? Or is it Drift Away by Dobie Gray? Or if you want to say Uncle Cracker, you can. But for me, it's Dobie Gray.
Well, considering I don't know, I do play the guitar, I do sing. Considering I don't know the the Dobie Gray song, but I do know the Peaceful Easy Feeling by the Eagles. And not that it even matters. I would always go with the Eagles because I love the Eagles. I would go.
I hate to do this. I really hate to do this, but I know you know this song.
No, I know this song.
Give
I
me
don't
the
know
beat, boys,
no,
and free my soul.
I don't know how
They
to,
sound the same.
I don't know how to play the song. I've never played it on the guitar. So
Okay.
in your
Okay. I was gonna
situation,
say you don't know.
no, I know the song. Trust me. Uncle Cracker ruined the song, but I'm saying that the Eagles for me are like if the Beatles are here with my dad growing up, the Eagles are right here. When Glenn Fry died, I was down for a while. Like I
I was
was
crushed.
really sad because I love Glenn Fry. He was my favorite. And so yeah, there you go. That's who I would take, the Eagles.
You know what? I almost want to pull an audible here, but I'm not. We'll have to do this another time because I'd love to do Don Henley, Glenn Fry because I'm a big Don Henley fan too. But we're not going to do that.
Well,
So,
no, let's do it. Let's. You got me thinking about it now. I mean, solo
but
artist.
I don't want to. I don't want to lose my next one though. So you got to give me 3 then.
That's fine.
But
solo artist Don Henley wipes the floor with Glenn Fry. It's not that Glenn Fry didn't have his hits as a solo artist, but Don Henley, I mean, my gosh, I mean, he had so many good songs by himself, whether it's The Boys of Summer, The End of Innocence, all so many good songs. And that makes it really tough.
of course, my favorite is Boys of Summer.
Yes.
But I love The Last Worthless Evening.
Yes. Very, the thing is about Glenn Fry is I like his voice better. And so the Eagles tracks that he is the singer, they're just so smooth. It's just so nice, so good. He had such a good voice. But that might be tougher than Paul and John, believe it or not.
I really
if you're an Eagles fan. I don't either.
And I'm a huge Eagles fan.
Because I like Don. I like what Glenn brought to the Eagles more, but Don Henley as a solo artist was so much better.
I would have to say that that might be a cop out, but let's just do that. I would say if we're talking the Eagles, I am going Glenn Fry. If we're talking solo, I'm going Don Henley.
I agree 100%. All right, go on to your next one.
Okay, you are building your all-time fictional football team, and you need a quarterback. Are you going the high school route? Are you going to West Canaan, Texas, and going John Moxon? Or are you going to the pros? The replacements? Are you going Shane Falco?
Oh, this is a no-brainer for me. No-brainer. Didn't have to think twice. I'm going with the West Canaan Coyote quarterback, Jonathan Moxon. Kilmer's Coyotes. I mean, you think about what he did to that community. I mean, you think about how many lives he changed. I mean, he was he was just accepted into Brown. And you know what? When Kilmer threatened to get his scholarship revoked, he absolutely
you're really thinking about this.
He absolutely said, stick it to the man. And let's just go out. Kilmer always says 60 minutes. But I love that movie. Varsity Blues is one of my favorite movies of all time. And I've never been a big Replacement fan, even though it was filmed in Baltimore, Maryland. But it's still, for me, it's like, oh, Johnny Moxon, man. He's the one that did the oop-de-oop to Billy Bob. And I think it's funny. My wife and I always joke about the scene when they kick Kilmer out. Okay, and so they come back on the field, and Lance Harbor's the offensive coordinator on crutches, and he overloads one side, and you see these people, the fans that are in the stands, like, how many receivers they have? I'm thinking, well, shoot, it's just like a 4 wide receiver set. Like, teams do that all the time now. It's just how the game has changed, I guess. But no, Johnny Moxon, man, that's who I would take. Who are you taking?
Yeah. You know what? For me, I love Varsity Blues. I saw it in the theater. I'm a huge Scott Conn fan. I love Tweeter. I love Scott Conn in the new Hawaii Five-0. I loved him when he was on Entourage for a little bit. He's just great. And I have no problem with Vanderbeek, But for me, let me just give you one quote. I wish I could say something classy and inspirational, but that just wouldn't be our style. Pain heals, chicks dig scars, glory lasts forever. Shane Falco, Washington Sentinels.
Geez, Washington.
Right there.
Okay, well, you got three. I'm going to ask you one that's a spinoff of this one, and that is better high school football movie. Better high school football movie. Varsity Blues or Friday Night Lights. Because Friday Night Lights is a true story.
Wow.
It was dramatized. Keep that in mind. But at the same time, that was a very good movie as well. Booby Miles. Booby. You want to win? Let Booby spin. Put me in, coach.
Well, you know what? I read the book way before, and I'm not one of those book guys, all right? Yeah. But those guys, the way I talk about the show Stranger Things, with those kids being the same age as I was back in 1983, these guys were seniors in high school when I was a senior in high school. So it's really cool. And I read the book maybe about a year or two after it came out. I always loved Friday Night Lights with H.D. Bissinger, who wrote the book. The movie was good. But for me, I kind of would go Varsity Blues. I mean, look, you don't in Varsity Blues. I mean, you don't have Booby. Booby is just great.
He's awesome.
But you don't have Tim McGraw getting drunk and beating you up either.
Yeah.
But if you go to the other side, you go to Friday Night Lights, you get a whipped cream bikini, and that's all you gotta say for me. That's a fun movie.
That's the thing. Varsity Blues was just pure fun, and there was, if you count Billy Bob on a football field with a shotgun shooting his old football trophies as like the dark moment of the movie, then it's not that bad. But there were some. Friday Night Lights was much more realistic. Some might like that. When I was in college, my fraternity, I don't know why we did this, but for 2 years, it was like every other Friday night or every Friday night, we would probably watch Varsity Blues like right after dinner before we all went out. And I just love that movie. Love it. I love everything about it. I think it's awesome. That's a generational movie. You talk to young kids today, they've never even seen it. Some of them never even heard of it. It's a generational movie.
I'm shocked.
And it's phenomenal. Love it. Absolutely love it. Oh, and then, remember that someone just threw in Remember the Titans. Whoa, now we're getting into some deep stuff.
Yeah, and we could always talk Remember the Titans. I'll give you two real quick because my all-time favorite high school movie, a little biased because it was filmed in my hometown. I was at the game, but 1983's All the Right Moves with Tom Cruise. Fantastic sports movie. Really good quarterback, a really good football movie. And here's a movie that I'm sure you never heard of. It came out in 1985. It's called The Best of Times with Robin Williams, and Kurt Russell was the quarterback, Reno Hightower. And if you watch this movie, you would just lose yourself in fun for an hour and a half. It's that fun.
So, well, hey, they're all good in their own way. And so we'll keep it at that. But you know what? I think this is a good way to end the show. I appreciate your time, Bryan. And next week, it'll be just the OG and myself again. Dave Schofield's still out there, I don't know, trying to catch some clams or something like that down in Florida. But anyways, we'll be back next week for another Steelers preview. I'm sure we'll have some drama to talk about between now and then. We'll talk about the scouting combine. We might talk about the inside linebackers for a second week in a row like we did the outside linebackers. But you know what?
It's good stuff.
Yeah. So with that said, make sure you check us out on YouTube by searching BTSC Steelers Radio on YouTube search engine, or you can listen to us in any place you find podcasts, Google Play, iTunes, you name it, Spotify. Just search Steelers will be one of the first options. Look for the BehindTheSteelCurtain.com logo. And as always, BehindTheSteelCurtain.com, that's your one-stop shop for Pittsburgh Steelers needs. We'll see you next week on another episode of the Steelers Preview.